you know, in any country, there are this positive and a negative impact in every country. So as you being in Africa, Ghana precisely, what are the negative and the positive impacts you've had in Ghana?
Well, the positive is the people. I love the people. They're so friendly, they're kind, they're hardworking, so that part of it I really love. And they're, I feel like I have a camaraderie with them. We get along well. And I feel like family. Okay, so which I know I am because our people were taken, during the transatlantic slave time, and when they came back, now that I'm back, it's like I'm your auntie, your long lost auntie. So I feel that's how I feel being around them. So that is really the good part.
Can you just tell us more about you?
Okay, so I was originally born in Washington, D.C.,
Yeah.
in the States, and I lived there until I was about 20. And then I moved to Virginia, moved around a lot, and I have 4 children. And my son, who's the oldest, and then I have a daughter. My son is Kenny, my daughter Denise, and then I have twin girls, Jessica and Rachel.
So what made you think you should come to Africa, or like choosing Ghana? What made you think you should choose Ghana?
Well, Ghana chose me, actually. So when I heard about, in 2019, I heard about the year of return.
Yeah.
And that they were giving away land to people, to the diaspora. So I applied sight unseen, and I worked with Sister Ya. I don't know if you know her, she's in Accra.
Yeah.
And she helped me to secure this plot. And so before I even came, I had gotten this plot of land. So in 2021, I came with some other people to on a tour. I don't know, Ron Dalton and some other Hebrew Israelites were coming on a tour. And so we all met in Ghana. But when I got off the plane and got here, I just knew I was coming back. I had no intention of moving here before I came. But after I got here and after a few days, I was like, this is it. I'm coming back to live.
Wow. A lot of Hebrew people normally says they had a prophecy that they have to move to Ghana. I don't know if you are really part of those people that had this prophecy that they're supposed to move to Ghana.
I don't know what group that is, but I do know that when I came, there were, I'd say, about 20 of us all together.
Yeah.
We didn't know each other. Ron Dalton, who kind of spearheaded the trip, he knew some of the people, but when we all came and we all met together, we ended up saying that we were going to have a community together. Because everybody that came pretty much felt like they were supposed to come back and live here. So it wasn't so much that somebody said prophetically, you're going to come here. It was just a knowing inside for most of us. I know it was for me. And so even while I was here, one day I met Michael and his wife, and they told me that they were building their house, and they showed me pictures, and I just asked them, can you build mine? And that's how it got started.
So how did you feel when you came to Ghana all alone without knowing anybody, and you want to establish yourself in Ghana? How did you feel?
Nervous because I didn't know anybody, but I still knew. I don't even know how to explain it. Like, it's just a knowing inside that I was doing the right thing. And then Michael and Kezia were so generous to say, well, you can come stay with us. And so when I met them, there was an instant connection. And so that was very helpful. So when I came back in May of last year, two of my daughters and 2 grandsons came with me because they wanted to make sure I was going to be okay. And so when they met Kezia and Michael, they were very comfortable as well that this was the right thing for me to do.
Yeah, but was it not too difficult for you to establish in Ghana as you came without knowing anybody?
It was, yeah. I mean, when you think about, like, well, you don't know anybody here. Not only are you coming to another country, you're coming to another continent, all the way across the world, right?
Yeah.
But again, my relationship, I guess, with the Most High I just really knew that this was what I was supposed to do. So I had a peace about it, even though it still was a bit scary. And so my two grandsons who came on the trip as well, one of them ended up staying with me as well. On the day that he was supposed to get on the flight, we were at a restaurant and he was just like, I cannot go. I just can't go. I can't leave here. And so he ended up staying with us with Mickey and Keziah, and he just went back just for a visit to the States, but he lives here too.
So was it purposely because you wanted to stay in Ghana to do business in Ghana, or maybe you had any different agenda coming to Ghana?
My thought when I got here was to be of service, to the people of Ghana. I knew I was going to have to get some kind of work, and so I'm still kind of, feeling my way through what I'm going to do. But I retired, so I was, because I'm retired, I'll have, income coming in.
Yeah.
So that makes it easier for me. But my plan is, my heart, okay, is to work with young people.
Yeah.
The young women and men, and just kind of help them in any way that I can, and also the children, because like I said, I have 16 grandchildren that I left behind, and so when I see all these beautiful little faces, it reminds me of them, and I just want to be there for them. So I work with Mikiel. He has a NGO, and they work with a school in Nyaba, and so I do help. I have helped with that.
I can see we really have this big house of where we are now. It's really a big house. And at the moment when I came, I've never met any man in this house. Why don't you just get a Ghanaian man to marry you?
Because that's not my purpose for being here.
Yes,
I have a different purpose for being here. My purpose for being here is to do just what I was saying, like to work with people and to establish, help other diasporans that's going to come over. I'm looking actually at maybe doing land sale, just like getting a big area so that Hebrew Israelites, we can all be together. Like the original thought was when we came in in 2021. So that's where I feel like I'm being led. So I have to keep my focus. And so right now, my focus is not on marriage.
In any country there are this positive and a negative impact in every country. So as you being in Africa, Ghana precisely, what are the negative and the positive impacts you've had in Ghana?
Well, the positive is the people. I love the people. They're so friendly, they're kind, they're hardworking, so that part of it I really love. And they're, I feel like I have a camaraderie with them. We get along well, and I feel like family. Okay, so which I know I am, because our people were taken, during the transatlantic slave time, and when they came back, now that I'm back, it's like I'm your auntie, your long lost auntie. So I feel that's how I feel being around them. So that is really the good part. Some of the things that I don't like about Ghana is some of the little corruption things, like where, if you're going through a police checkpoint, the driver got to slip the guy some money. I just don't like that at all. Even though I know that's the culture here, and it seems to be okay, or accepted in some ways, but that I don't like. So that kind of thing. Some other things is like I wish it was more up to date, like with the sanitation and stuff like that, and the trash and things like that. Because coming from where I came from, we didn't have that in my neighborhood. Is there in the States, but not where I was living. So those are the things, but those are things that don't deter me from it. It's just things that I wish were different. I did have not a too good experience with some land, land purchase, and so I'm still working through that. But so the jury is out whether that's going to be a good experience or bad.
So far so good. You being in Africa, how many African countries have you visited so far?
Well, the only other one I've been to so far is South Africa.
I
went to South Africa last year, and it was wonderful. I went there to visit the same people who I met when I came here, a lot of them ended up in South Africa to scout it out.
Yeah.
Because at that time you couldn't come into Ghana without the COVID-19 vaccine. And so my grandson and I took a trip down there with them and met up with them and had a great time. We went on a safari and everything. We were in Johannesburg.
A lot of people out there, precisely, I'm not judging you for what you are, but a lot of people out there in the States or maybe different continents always says negative things about Africa. They normally says Africa is dirty, Africa is this, Africa is that. You being in Africa, having experience in Africa, do you really think Africa is really a poor place for us to be, or maybe for you to be?
No, I really don't, because I've lived in the States and I've lived in different parts of the States. So I know that there are some parts of the States that look just like this. So, so what people see, a lot of people see, especially a lot of the Africans, they don't see the true part of all of the United States. They only see this, what looks like, this great place. But even when I was growing up, when I was very young, I lived, in what people considered poor, where like my mom, for example, used to have to rummage for food behind the grocery stores to get food for the family and stuff like that. So we came up what people consider to be poor. So I don't look at this as poverty. I look at it as a country that's young and that's coming up and going into its own. So there are parts of it that's built up and really great, and then there are other parts of it that's poor. The same thing in the States. If you go into a lot of the black communities, it's very, very poor there. So this is no different than any other place.
How do you feel when you see an African calling you a black American or maybe a diaspora? How do you feel?
It doesn't bother me, because they've been brainwashed just like we were brainwashed. That we were brainwashed to think that you guys were, terrible and ignorant and poor, right? And so I know that that's not true. So you guys have been conditioned to think negative about us as well. And so it's not true. It's just the way that you've been conditioned. So my thing is, I would like for people to get to know us more rather than judge us first. And so I do find that sometimes if I'm going to the store or I'm going to purchase something, they will jack up the price because of who I am. Those are things that I don't like. But I do know that, again, where the root of all that has come from. It's come from the colonizers, who have done a very good job of trying to keep us pitted against each other.
You decided to move from your continent to Africa, right? Mm-hmm. So what has Africa impacted in your life whilst you moved to Africa?
I'd say the biggest thing for me is, again, the people.
Yeah.
I just, it feels like home, okay? So I was born in the States and lived there all my life. But you always have to look over your shoulder, because you are a black American. And so you know that you never know if the police are going to pull you over. You never know if you're going to get a call that a police officer has shot your grandchild. There's so much what they call racism over there. But when you're here, you don't have that, because everybody's like you. Now, there may be some Africans who think differently of me, but they can't. It's not because of my color. It's not because of something so arbitrary,
Yeah.
It's just something that they think, well, you guys think y'all are better than other people and stuff like that. But it's not race. It's not because somebody can look at me and hate me just because of how I look.
Yeah. So as of now that you are in Africa and you are staying in Africa, you want to live in Africa. Mm-hmm. What are your plans towards people within your community, or maybe people that you live within Africa? What do you want to do for them so that they will also have a benefit on you?
So that they'll have a better view of me?
Like benefiting from you being in Africa.
Oh, okay. Well, like I said, I'm still exploring, but I want to, eventually have some type of maybe a business or something like that where I could employ, some of the locals. I also, when I was in the States, I did a lot of volunteering with young people, and helping them, just giving them a safe place to come and talk about their problems or issues and things like that. So I'd like to have something like that, maybe in the village in Yaba, to maybe have like a rec center, a little place where they can come and just kind of talk about, issues. Maybe I can talk to them about how they can be more effective financially, how they can learn how to just be more positive or view things in a different way. That's just kind of my coaching and mentoring background. So I'd like to do something like that.
Wow. You had the biggest mansion in Asebu for now. You are the one having the biggest mansion in Asebu. What inspired you to build this house?
I think it was when I saw Miguel's house, when I saw the picture of his house, and I was like, ooh, that's really nice. And so he had some other pictures.
Yeah.
And so I thought that I would do that. And then I also think long term, not, certainly not right away, but long term, I'm going to use this as an Airbnb or as a transition house for people that are coming and need a place to stay, maybe while they visit the land. They can come and stay here, or eventually, if I move out, then I'll, just rent out the whole place.
So definitely, how much did this building cost you as you were building the place?
How much?
Yeah.
Too much. No. Actually, it started out at around $55,000 US dollars.
Wow.
Yep. But over time, it has increased quite a bit.
Yeah, you made mention of you were having these legal issues concerning land and so many stuffs over here when you came to Asebu. So far, so good. Have you been able to solve all these problems? Have you seen somebody? Have you seen a lawyer that's guided you to get whatever thing that you're supposed to be done?
No, not for the land. The other land that is in dispute for me is not in Asebu.
Yeah,
it's outside of Asebu, and so we, right now we have not gotten that resolved, but we're working through it. And so that's why I was saying I'll reserve my decision on whether it was good or bad after I finished the process. But we did get an attorney, and they're trying to work with them to get things done. But you know how it is in Ghana. The one phrase I learned here was exercise patience. That's what everybody was saying to me. Mommy, exercise patience, exercise patience.
Do you think our leaders are doing well in Africa and Ghana precisely?
Ladies?
Our leaders.
Our leaders?
Yeah.
Ooh. I think that there's a lot of room for improvement. I think, and it's the same way in the States. So what I'm saying here, I'd say over there. The politicians have different agendas than what we'd like for them to have. They come across as trying to help the people. But once they get in power, I guess it's just the money that corrupts them. And they don't seem to have the people at the forefront of their decisions and thoughts.
Now that you are in Africa, we generalize it like you are being an African already. So as far as you are in Africa, you are an African. What would you change about Africa if you were to be the president of Africa or maybe of Ghana?
I would definitely say stop letting other nations come in and do what we can do ourselves. Like the infrastructure, like having the Chinese come and building the infrastructure and doing all these different things and taking, doing the, manufacturing and all that. Why aren't we doing it ourselves? We have the people, we have the resources. I think there's just the mindset, that they have to go to the West or they have to go to people other than even Africans. Why don't they go to another African country if they need funds and work together? As the different African countries come together and do it rather than always, thinking that they have to get it from the Europeans or the white people. They don't. We don't. It's just a mindset. But I think it's all part because we were colonized for so long, and it's just a changing of the mindset. As you awaken, you realize that you don't have to do that.
Don't you think the negative things that this CNN, BBC, and this Al Jazeera people normally post about Africa out there, the negative stuffs they normally post about Africa out there, is scaring people to come to Africa?
I think it is scaring some people to come to Africa. It always has, and for I'd say, for as long as I've been alive, I was part of that, because I believed the rhetoric. I believed it, because I believed that they were telling the truth about everything. But then when you get older, if you just, the internet was the eye opener for so many people. Once the internet was out there and for everyone, people began to see, oh my goodness, is that Africa? So, that can't be. That's in Ghana? These buildings, all you thinking in your mind is that it's just, all poverty, because that's what they show you. They don't show you all these great buildings and infrastructure and roads and things like in different countries like Kenya and Rwanda and all. They didn't show you that. So now that you have the internet, you can just search it for yourself and see, and it just opens up a whole different world for you.
So my final question: Why did you choose to build it in Asebu?
Well, because of the land. When I heard that the land was going to be given away to those who wanted to come back, and so that's how I got this land, and so that's why I decided to build it, because the land was free.
I'm not supposed to ask this question, but I have to ask. I've learned a little bit of African village at Asebu, and I was really told that diasporas living at a place are not united. What do you think they're supposed to do to unite each other? Don't you think coming together to unite will be better than divided?
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's the unfortunate part. But I think that you got to remember that even though we're all diasporans and we've come from other places, Some have come from the UK, some have come from Jamaica, some have come from Haiti, some have come from even different parts of the United States. Some have come from Canada. So we don't know each other. It's just the same as if, coming here to Ghana and not knowing you, right? So it's going to take us spending time together and having a common goal, which is to make Asebu a Pan-African village, what we want it to be, which would be a much more positive place. And then it's just like a family. You're going to have some family members that's going to be on your side, and then you're going to have some that's going to talk about you behind your back, no matter what you do, right?
Yeah.
So you're not going to everybody's not going to be satisfied or pleased. So what you want to do, though, is just try to come together with as many people in the community as you can.
Yeah.
If we just get to know each other a little bit more, I think we'll be a little bit more tolerant of each other.
So have you guys tried enough to push the agenda just to bring back everybody together?
Yeah, we have monthly meetings, with the official Pan-African Village group. So we have a Zoom meeting where we talk about issues. We have a homeowners association where we have people, who are managing and facilitating certain parts of it, like the infrastructure and the finances and things like that. So we're working on it. It's a work in progress. But again, like I said, it's going to be some people who are not going to ever, just like I said, like in a family, you might have that one cousin who just always complains, and no matter what you say, they are always the negative, and you can't make them see it your way.
Wow.
But for the most part, everybody else can get along. And you still love that cousin when they come over, you just like, hey, you still love them, hug them, but as soon as they leave, they're going to talk about you.
Sure. I like the way you smile, I like the way you talk. It's nice, but what do you have to tell people out there if your friends and your families are watching you?
Oh, hi to all my wonderful grandchildren. I miss you all so much. But for those who are thinking about coming to Ghana, I'd say stop thinking about it and just start planning it and do it. You will love it here. It's an experience that like none other. I think that you should come. I think you should go to what we call the dungeons, or some say the castles, and go through the tours and see what our ancestors went through, and how now we have come back to, and we have returned to come back to say we're a family. And so I think you should come home.
As Mrs. Kane said, you guys should come home. if you are watching my channel, kindly subscribe to my channel. And another thing, don't forget I have this GoFundMe account, and I might need you guys to support. So please support me to get my equipment back. You know, I lost my equipment from flood and so forth. So please, if you're watching me, you can just support me to get some of my equipment back. I just have to raise some money to buy some equipment. So I think I'll put the link of the GoFundMe in my description. So maybe if you want to donate to me, you can do that for me. So
All right.
yeah, thank you.
You were welcome. Thank you. Aquaba.
That's it. Wow.